Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to tonight's meeting about the San Bruno grade separation project and other issues for Caltrain. My name is Bevan Dufty, and I'm the Interim Community Relations Manager for Caltrain, and I really appreciate the good turnout tonight. I wanted to introduce some of the people that are here with us, and then I want to bring the principal up to bring greetings, and then we have the mayor who's also here, and then we'll go right into the presentation. I'd like to first acknowledge that both our police chief and fire chief are here. So Police Chief Neil Telford is here in the back, and our fire chief Dennis Haig is also here. I'd like to acknowledge that the Director of Public Works for the City of San Bruno, Clara Fabri, is here, and also Bruce Shuchuk, who works with the department monitoring this project. And then I'd like to introduce some of the individuals who are here representing Caltrain from the office that I'm from, the Public Affairs Office. I'd like to introduce Christina Jacinto, who helped me so much get this meeting ready in the back, and then also Christine Dunn, who many of you know, who's a spokesperson for Caltrain, is here. And then Rafael Bolon, who is our project manager, is here, and he will be presenting. Our resident engineer, Bill Carslin, is here, and also part of the project team, John Bialy, is here. So you have a lot of the technical experts who will be able to give conclusive and helpful answers. And I also want to acknowledge that representing Supervisor Dave Pine of San Mateo, the district supervisor for this neighborhood, and Randy Torrijos is here. And if Randy could put his hand up, and if any of you want to meet him, you'll be able to do that. And so I want to thank the principal and the family here at Bel Air Elementary for welcoming us, and I want to welcome Principal Michael Rothammer.
Well, I'll say welcome again also to the families and community members and city officials that are here. My notes here. I want to thank Caltrain and Samtran for coming out and taking the time to reach out to the community here. This will affect us all in the short term, but in the long term, I think we'll have a greatly enhanced, help me here. Streetscape, transportation. I don't have that vocabulary. I have an educational vocabulary. But anyway, thank you for coming out, and I'll turn it back over to you. Okay.
And I want to thank Principal Rothammer. He was very concerned that we do everything bilingual, and he's very proud of the involvement of the parents here at Bel Air, which is really outstanding, and so I appreciate him being here. I'd next like to introduce Mayor Jim Ruane, who is here representing the city family of San Bruno.
Thank you, Bevan, and welcome to San Bruno. So you'll enjoy this great city. As Bevan said, and I've been saying for the last many number of months, I'm the very proud mayor of the wonderful city of San Bruno. We've all been through a lot here in this last 15, 16 months, and this is just another thing that we're going to have to go through. San Bruno is sort of the host of this, but it is a project that is owned by the Joint Powers Board, and in fact not run by the city of San Bruno. But you have to know that not too many years ago, this intersection over here that we're going to grade separate was in fact the 5th most dangerous intersection in the state of California. And we are going to get that corrected with a lot of collaborative efforts between the city and in fact the JPB. So you should know our main concern as a city is to make sure that you get the information you need to know what's going on a day-to-day basis. So we have a schedule given to us by the contractors, and we're going to try to keep that schedule. The weather has worked in their favor, so hopefully there won't be any delays going forward. And the main concern that we have, and I want to relate to you, is the safety of this particular area of town, of our city, as this is ongoing. So our fire chief is here tonight, Dennis, and our police chief, Neil, is here tonight, and they have assured me that they have sat down with the JPB and worked out any kind of contingency plan in case there is any kind of an emergency as far as ingress and egress in and out of this area. So that is a major part of why San Bruno is so very, very concerned about this. So I won't speak a lot more, but I will say that Michael Salazar, council member, just walked in. I want to introduce Michael too. Thanks for coming, Michael. And we're gonna make this happen. But it's going to be rough for all of us for a relatively short period of time. But when it's over, we're going to be a lot better off for it. So thank you very much. And once again, Bevan, welcome and good luck.
Thank you so much. And council member, thank you so much, Mayor. Councilmember Salazar, would you like to come up and bring some greetings to the group? We want to welcome you. We wanted our elected family. Okay, to watch the show, so to speak, and see us work. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the mayor's comments, and I do want to say that it's been a month that I've been working with Caltrain, and so there's a lot that I'm still learning. But I have to tell you that having worked for 20 years in city government, I've never seen a city be as forthright, steadfast, and aggressive with us, asking, I think, many of the questions you will ask, and trying to make sure that in this difficult time, that this project is as good a neighbor as possible. And I really want to say that. I'm not saying that to get them to be nice to us next week, because they're going to ask many more tough questions, but I do want to say that I have enormous respect for everyone from the elected officials to the city manager, Connie Jackson, to the Public Works Director, who've really held our feet to the fire, and I hopefully will meet some of the goals that they've set forth for us. As the mayor said, this project is to lead to a better San Bruno and to provide a better streetscape, to enhance pedestrian safety, to relieve traffic congestion, to make improvements specifically to support families bringing their children to this wonderful school, and to make improvements to Posey Park. And obviously, we are delayed in this project. Our goal is to be completed by the end of this year, and Raphael is going to speak to some of the details there. And we have in front of us, starting on Wednesday, a closure of Angus, which is going to be the longest closure, will last for a week, and then closures of San Bruno and San Mateo Avenues. And those are very significant, and we take them very seriously. Our goal has been to try and minimize the time at which all three streets are closed, and that will be Saturday, but obviously any of these streets being closed is going to have an impact. And so any advice that you can give us, the questions that you have about both this project, what the interim operations are going to be when we operate on the temporary tracks in order to build the permanent tracks, and making sure that we do everything possible to ensure the safety of the residents in this city. So we have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'd like to bring up our project manager from Caltrain, Raphael Ballone, to give that to you now.
Does that work? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. So really briefly, what we're going to present to you tonight is a brief overview of the project, just remind everybody what the goals and aims of this project are. And then I'm going to run through the overall project schedule, hit some of the major milestones. But my focus tonight is going to be on the next 6 months. And for two reasons, obviously, that's what's coming up, but also because we've been talking for some time about a couple of critical activities that are required to do the project, one of which is the cutover to the shoe fly, which is going to involve some traffic closures, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the other one is going to be immediately thereafter getting into pile driving, and that's another activity I'd like to discuss. Go ahead. So really quickly, as mentioned, this project is all about safety. So primarily, the safety goals involve partially raising the tracks and partially depressing 3 at-grade crossings. And the intent there is to simply get trains off the same grade as vehicles and pedestrians. In addition, there's some other ancillary benefits. Access to the school is going to get better. Access to the park adjacent to it will get better. We'll have less dwell time. There'll no longer be the need to stop as frequently for trains going by, and there's benefits with that. And then as well improving emergency response times and supporting in the general efforts that San Bruno is doing to revitalize this section of town. So as I mentioned, to carry out this grade separation, we'll be partially raising the tracks and partially depressing the street. So there'll be a grade separated crossing at 3 crossings at Angus, at San Bruno and San Mateo Avenues. And in addition to that, there'll be 3 additional other pedestrian-only crossings. So 2 of which will be at the station, which is where the old lumberyard was, and then 1 will be at the south side of the project, closer to where people cross currently at the Caltrain station. And just real briefly, some of the amenities, we worked very closely with the architects and with the city to come up with some beautification, some amenities on this. You're going to see a lot of improvements at the park. Some of the architectural features include a fountain, a couple of elevators for access, and street trees, planting, things of that nature. So project schedule overall, we're looking at construction through summer of 2013. And I need to stop there for a minute and just state unequivocally that that has pushed back from the last time we talked about it. So we were previously talking beginning of 13. At one point even we were thinking end of 12. And there's a number of reasons that's happened. This year has been very good, as the mayor mentioned, for construction. Last year was terrible. We lost a lot of days due to the weather, and that pushed some of our critical activities out. But beyond that, there's been some key milestones that have been pushed out. So some of you have probably seen the Caltrain station has moved from the previous location south. That was an important milestone that we needed to complete prior to doing the shoe fly construction, and we were late doing that. And there's a number of reasons that it happened, but the reality is we've pushed that out, and so the schedule has slipped accordingly. So main activities kind of culminated in that station, as I said. So you see a lot of sewer work, a lot of utility work, and all culminating in that cutover in October. And then the next set of main activities is what you see right outside your window right now, is obviously prepping for the shoe fly for this weekend. And then the upcoming activities, again, the ones I want to really focus on is the cutover, and 2 things with the cutover. What that means for this weekend, and I'll go through day by day what that means as far as traffic control, but then also overall having a shoe fly, what that's going to mean for those in the immediate vicinity. Obviously, trains are going to be closer for those of you on First Avenue who are facing the Caltrain tracks, and I want to talk about that for a little bit. The next thing that's going to happen as soon as train traffic shifts onto our shoe fly is we're going to demo out the existing Caltrain tracks. That's why we built the shoe fly. As soon as we start removing that, the very next activity that's going to follow right along behind that is pile driving. And so I'm going to talk about that as well, but once again, pile driving, there are impacts of that. So I want to talk about those as well. So this image is a little bit grainy, but what you're looking at is San Mateo, San Bruno. So you've got, for those of you who can see off to the left is north, so you can see the old lumber yard, and then for the top of the picture would be 101. So that kind of orchestrates you a little bit. So I'm going to use San Bruno, San Mateo as an example because that's where the station's going in, and that's where the most concentration of activity occurs. So the next main activity, obviously, as we discussed, is the shoe fly. So the shoe fly, I've been using the term without defining it, but the shoe fly is a temporary rail bypass. So essentially, to do all this work on a grade separation, it's going to occur underneath our existing tracks. So in order for that to happen, we got to have the trains running on something. So what we do is we build temporary tracks to the east. That allows us to demo out the existing Caltrain tracks, and then it allows us to build our grade separation and then swap the traffic back onto the now elevated tracks. So that's the sequence. You kind of shift things to the east, then you shift them back to the west, but this time up in the air. And you can try that, sure. Let's see if that, better? Okay. Okay, there you go. Now you guys see what I'm talking about. So I was just pointing at a scribble up there. So we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but there, as I said, there's really 2 main things I want to talk about as it regards to shoe fly. One of which is, in order to cut over from the shoe fly, we need to cut over all 3 at-grade crossings at once. And the reason for that's really simple is the shoe fly is at a different vertical level than the existing tracks. So as it stands, we cannot have a car going over that hump. So What that means for practical purposes is this cutover has to happen in one activity. So that's number one I wanted to mention. The second thing that I want to mention, and we discussed this in previous meetings, but I want to be very explicit about this, is that trains are moving 20 and a half feet closer to some of you. So there are going to be impacts because of that. I'm sure most of you have seen fencing going up, K-rail going up. You can see there's already parking restrictions on First Avenue. Some of you have already been impacted by that. But the impact, as I said, once we shift over on that shoe fly, those trains will be closer, they will be louder, and this is just something that we need to do to get this built. So I just want to be really upfront about that. So, so this slide shows traffic already cut over to the shoe fly. So if you look down on the bottom of the screen, you can kind of see where the tracks used to be, where the at-grade crossings were. So essentially, to get shoe fly traffic over there, we need to shift the gates. We need to shift all the signal system over to the east side. Okay, so now I want to talk in detail about what we're going to see this weekend. So as I said, in order to facilitate the cutover, it is necessary that we impact all three crossings simultaneously. That being said, we understand what a major inconvenience it is to have the three major arteries across the tracks impacted at the same time. So we're looking at each of the crossings, and we're prioritizing San Bruno because it has the most traffic and it has the freeway access. So let me go through the sequence really quickly, and then we can talk about it at the end if there's more questions. So the first thing you're going to notice is Wednesday at 8 p.m. is Angus is going to close. Angus and only Angus. So the detour for those wishing to cross Angus would be for them to go north and take San Mateo to San Bruno across the tracks. So that's for Wednesday night through Thursday, all the way through 4 a.m. the subsequent Wednesday. So basically a 6-day closure of Angus. So that's Wednesday night. Thursday takes us to Friday at 11 p.m. Friday at 11 p.m. is when the main closure, if you will, begins. So at 11 p.m., San Bruno and San Mateo are going to be closed at the same time. Now, Angus is still closed in this scenario, so all three of them are closed. So that night, we will work feverishly to get San Bruno open. The goal, again, is to prioritize the busiest street, which is San Bruno. So San Bruno will be open, it's actually in reverse order, but we'll get San Bruno open by 4 a.m. that Sunday. So basically, you're looking at Saturday without San Bruno. At that point, for Sunday, if you want to go up San Mateo, the detour is San Bruno. If you want to go Angus, the detour is San Bruno. Prior to that, so on Saturday, if you want to get across the tracks, you need to go up Huntington and you need to go over at Scott. So I want to be really clear about that. That's Saturday only, and everybody here should have received a flyer that shows the kind of worst case, which is what I just described. The only exception to that is if you're driving a large vehicle, if you're carrying a semi, something like that, we're going to ask that you go all the way up to South Linden. And that's just because Scott is just a very tight curve, and so we don't want larger vehicles getting stuck there. So this is a map that many of you have probably seen in either door hangers or handouts that you should have received. And it's a simplified version of what I'm describing, but essentially what you're seeing is there's kind of two phases, if you will, to the shutdown. There's an Angus phase where Angus will be closed for those 6 days. And during that phase, anyone who wants to go to, for instance, the school, and we're typically used Angus to do that, your detour would be up San Bruno and then cut over through the avenues. So then there's a second phase, which is sort of the shorter phase, but the more impactful phase, which is the Saturday itself. So during the Saturday, all the traffic that needs to get around needs to go up to Scott Street, and larger vehicles, we're going to have somebody there to remind people, but larger vehicles need to get up to South Linden. Again, that's a Saturday impact. It will end 4 a.m. that Sunday morning. Sunday, San Mateo will remain closed, but San Bruno will be open. So if you want to travel east or west on San Mateo, and when I say San Mateo, just so that I'm clear, I'm talking about just the portion from Huntington where Melody Toyota is. That little quarter circle will be closed. So the San Mateo through downtown core will remain open throughout. But again, if you're on the avenue and you want to go up San Mateo, and that's typically how you go north on San Mateo, then you won't be able to make that turn on Sunday. Then Monday 4 a.m., so in time for the Monday commute, San Mateo will be open. So San Mateo, San Bruno will be open, normal traffic activity through there. However, Angus will remain closed all the way through 4 a.m. on the Wednesday. Pedestrians, slightly different, but very close to what I just described. So the main difference between pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic is that there's one additional crossing, which I haven't mentioned because it's only for pedestrians, and that's at the existing Caltrain station. So I know a lot of people were crossing prior to this at the old Caltrain station, in fact, using it to get to the school. We moved the station south. There is still a crossing there. So if you're trying to get across Angus and you live south of Angus, so you live, let's say you live off of Huntington and you're trying to get that way, the quickest way is to get down to our station, cross over at the station, if you're on foot. If you live north of Angus, if you're in that area, you would go to San Mateo. San Mateo, remember, is going to be open except for that weekend. Now, the exception, like I said, is going to be that Saturday. So that Saturday is going to have the maximum impact for pedestrians as well as vehicles. So pedestrians during that time frame, the southern crossing, the existing Caltrain station crossing will remain open. So that's always an option. So for those people who live off the southern part of First or on Huntington, those houses there, you can access at the station. However, for people who would ordinarily cross at San Mateo or San Bruno, we're going to ask you that you go north to Scott and cross at Scott, because San Bruno, San Mateo will be closed. So the next activity that I want to really mention is pile driving. And again, we've been talking about pile driving coming up. The pile driving is a necessary part of building the structures that will eventually be the grade SEP and will eventually house the new station. But in order to do that, we have to drive piles. And driving piles, I think everybody in this room understands it's going to be loud. One important thing to mention is that the hours of operation are going to be limited to daytime activity. So I just want to be really clear that there will be no pile driving during the night. However, for those of you who are at home during those hours, there will be noise. There's no question about it. Our goal is to have the pile driving activity completed as quickly as possible. So it's to everybody's benefit that we get in and get out, and that's our goal to do so. The number of piles, these are actually pile groups. So each pile group, if you will, represents one support for the eventual bridge. So I just wanted to point out that at San Bruno and San Mateo, there's 3 sets, whereas Angus is a little bit different. There's actually only 2, but those 2 are a little bit bigger because you got to fit roughly the same number of piles in there. This will make a lot more sense on the next slide, where you can see San Bruno. I don't know if you can all see now with the lights dim, but San Bruno has this sort of donut-shaped detour. And what that is for is precisely to allow us to do pile driving and other excavation work that's associated with that. So basically, if we're going to work in the middle of San Bruno, we need to route traffic around it. If we're going to work on the outside of San Bruno, we'll run traffic back through where it's going today, and we'll work on the outside. So what you see in this slide is you see the abutments, which is the beginning of the bridges, and then you see that in the bottom left-hand corner is the beginning of a pedestrian underpass, and then what you see is the beginning of the grade SEP itself going up. Just more grade SEP going in. And here the bridge starts to come together. And then last shot, this is the completed station. You see the amenities over there, the Posey Park, all the street tie-ins are completed, and the project is done. And here's a shot at the platform level. Is just a rendering that we did. Another rendering. And then just the last point I really wanted to make, and then we can take some questions, is on safety. And I just want to reiterate that first and foremost, this is a safety improvement project. We're undergoing all this disruption. We do understand that it is a major impact to your community, but this is being done for the safety of everybody who uses these crossings, pedestrians, vehicles, et cetera. So in keeping with that, we make safety a very high priority here at Caltrain. And one thing I just wanted to iterate for everybody in this room is during the construction, we're going to fence off areas of construction. You're going to see K-rail, you're going to see fencing, you're going to see all kinds of signage. We just ask for your cooperation. We understand it might be tempting to cut through or something like that, but it's for everybody's safety. We want to just protect everybody, and the best way to do that is if you're not trained and you're not part of the construction, then just if you could stay out of the construction activity, everybody benefits from that. And the last point I want to make on that is, as everybody here's experienced, there's been a lot of flagging, and I know how that can get frustrating as well when you're on the street. But same point as to that just it's in everybody's best interest to get this thing done quickly, and we need to just everybody obey the flaggers, follow the directions. They're here to keep you safe, and just it would help everybody if we could do that. Thanks. And here's the contact information for any questions you have. So we have a dedicated email line, and then there's also a customer service line. But the best phone is really to get at that 650 number, and we do respond to those. We respond to emails as well. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. If you put your name and email on that, we will send you updates of construction activities periodically. We're also sending out notices, et cetera, but the emails are good for people who want week-to-week type activity updates. And I'll take any questions.
So I'll take the mic to anyone asking a question, and because this is being televised, it would be great if you could stand up and ask your question. And I want to also acknowledge that Councilmember Ken Ibarra is here. So the councilman's in the back, and I want to thank him for coming and joining us. So someone's standing, so I'll start. I'm imagining you have a question. Great.
I have several questions. First of all, overall, is the project on time, ahead of schedule, behind time? What's the
overall project schedule?
Yeah, their schedule.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we are behind schedule. And
You're behind schedule.
We are.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a number of things that led to that, but.
Oh, okay. All right. And the other thing, which is pretty important to me, why can't you have these meetings like on a Saturday morning or something, so that sometime when people can come? I asked a couple of my neighbors if they were coming over here, and they just came home from work. I'm retired, so I just walked.
Sure.
What's the difference, you know? And that's another question that I think you should think about.
Sure.
And
I think we're flexible to do that. The first two meetings, and I've just been
Especially-
with Caltrain a month, but the first two were in the evening, but we're very open. We talked about what would be the better time, and maybe I could just get a show of hands. How many, if the meeting were held on a Saturday afternoon, let's say, how many people here would be able to attend if we had a meeting in a couple of months that would still work okay? And for how many people is it better to have the meeting on a weeknight? Okay, all right, that's helpful. Thank you for asking that.
And then the other thing that I want to say, I said it before, is this crossing at Angus. I happen to live on 2nd Avenue, so that crossing, all right, it's going to be an underpass, right?
That's correct.
And I'm wondering what size it's going to be, how big a vehicle will be able to go through that underpass, and also will there be lights in there, and will there be a camera? Now, I don't drive, and if I started to walk through there, even in the daytime, and it's dark, and there's no lights and no camera, somebody can grab me and knock me down, and, you know, there I am, being robbed.
Right.
Oh. And I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Raphael, do you want to, so about the lighting and the width
Yeah.
for vehicles and pedestrian? So Bill, why don't you come up? Can you,
Is it 80,
so this is Bill
85?
Carlson, who's our resident engineer.
I think it's about 85 wide, is that right?
I'm sorry,
What's the total width? 80, 85? I don't know.
the total length between
Yeah.
Huntington and First? It's about 65, I think.
65 clear?
When they're completed, the bridges will handle the same size vehicle that they do today. I'm sorry, I've got a pretty bad cold here. They'll be able to handle the same vehicle size that the crossings do today. So that's about the width of the bridge. The widths are about, I think it's about 70 foot long. You'll be under the tracks. And of course, it'll have a 16.5 foot vertical. The width will be about 65, 70 feet.
I can probably,
Yep.
jump on that. Yeah, so you can get a truck through that. I mean, it's enough clearance. And the other thing I'd like to mention is it has the same number of vehicular lanes, but it has much wider sidewalk and space around that. So the general feel of it will be much more open than just that narrow lane. Part of the reason is, you know how Angus makes a jog today? The final alignment will connect the dots, so Angus will go direct, it'll go at a skewed angle, if that makes sense. So instead of coming up, going on a first, and then turning up by the 7-Eleven like you do now, it goes directly. And so because of that, we've had to open the bridge up quite a bit. So it's a lot wider than the two lanes would suggest. And then I guess to your second question on lighting, there is going to be lighting at the bridge, but there will not be cameras at the bridge.
And I inquired of Chief Telford, and he said that San Bruno Police Department is going to carefully evaluate the lighting as they would do with a change in the city to make sure that it's adequate and safe, and that they're going to pay careful attention when citizens' travel patterns change, when people start walking there, to make sure that they're passing calls and that they are able to evaluate if more needs to be done. Security cameras are generally, that's a city question. I mean, we would have to have some consultation with them, but they are going to be reviewing the lighting plans to make sure that it meets their standards and then paying careful attention.
I think Robert.
I had a question here first.
Sorry.
Mine's two parts. When are they going to start putting signage up about the detour coming up on Saturday? Is there signage up now?
There is for Angus.
Okay.
But you want to answer this, or?
There's some signage up now, there's some being installed tonight, and everything should be up by tomorrow.
Okay.
So-
Just so everybody has a little bit more
Yeah,
notice.
you're going to see a lot of those changeable message boards out all over the
Okay.
place with the flashing message on them.
Now, I live on Second, and typically with the backup on San Bruno Avenue, a lot of people cut through the avenues and use Angus as a crossover. Is there any way we can get a not a through street sign? Because then they're going to cut through the avenues and be stuck in the neighborhood and then have to come back out again. You know, I don't know that they're going to know that Angus is closed.
Those signs
You
will
understand?
direct them up to Scott for the
Okay.
weekend, if that's what you're
Yeah, but
talking
are they
about.
going to say, oh, well, I don't want to go that way, I'll just cut through over here to Angus, not knowing, you know, they're going to know that San Bruno is closed because it'll say that, but they're not going to know that Angus is closed until they go into the neighborhood and say, oh, well, I can't get out and have to come back out again.
I'll have to go back and see exactly the messages that
You
we're putting on
understand
there.
what I'm
Yeah, I do,
Yeah.
and I believe it says all crossings at Scott,
Okay.
so.
So I'm going to go to Robert and then come back.
This side and there. Yeah, which are the two main ones?
Just to follow up on the earlier question, I believe the fire chief can confirm during the discussions, they tested and they determined how big the opening needed to be and how wide it needed to be so that all the fire department current or anticipated equipment will still be able to adequately get through the Angus as it is to be built.
That's correct. Thank you.
I have trouble standing, so I'll have to. I have a couple of questions, and actually your comment brought up one. The information about Scott Street being difficult for large vehicles, it seems like that's a problem for fire trucks. Are the fire trucks going to have to go to Linden to get across the tracks on that Saturday? I have another question.
Okay, and then I'll bring it right back.
No, the response engines shouldn't have a problem, and the aerial truck actually has a better turning radius than the engine, so we're in pretty good shape there.
The other thing just has to, because I was on the original design committee, one of your slides shows 4 tracks. I don't think that's intended for now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So as you recall, the concept of the project was to not preclude 4 tracks.
Right.
So everything was designed with that in mind. And so what would happen in the event that high speed is ready,
Correct.
willing, and able at that point is that rather than completing the 2-track station, that's when you would build those tracks. At this point, I'm just showing the likely scenario of a 2-track, but you're right, nobody knows the future, and that was part of the original concept.
Right. Now, if indeed in the future there's the need for 4 tracks, that won't require relocating the elevators. Is that correct? The elevators will still be on the outside platform to load, so that you won't ever cross a track to get to your train.
Yeah, that's correct. So this is actually, I cheated and brought the 4-track just in case somebody
Yeah.
asked. So some of you may have seen this in previous meetings. So this is the concept that would involve high speed being alongside us such that we wouldn't complete the 2-track station. So you see where the 2 tracks furthest to the bottom of the screen, those are the 2 tracks we're building regardless. And then the question would be, if high speed is coming right along, you don't finish the 2-track station. You just immediately come in and build more berm and you finish that out. So to answer your question, yes, the portion where the one elevator, the one you can see over at the bottom left, that stays regardless. The second one, as you see, the permanent station shows a little bit of a walkway where the elevator comes out, and that's really why that concept was like that.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. And so it wouldn't require moving that elevator. It's going to stay where it would be.
The ultimate goal would be to not move anything, right?
Correct.
The design of this project was to avoid that. It was to say, at a certain point, we have to obviously make a commitment and choose which way we're going. But if there's a likelihood that we're going to go to 4 tracks, then we would proceed that way. If not, we would complete the 2-track station.
And a current passenger, say they miss their last stop and they have to go back the other direction, they would have to take the elevator down, walk across through the underpass, and then take the other elevator up to get on the other direction.
That's
okay.
correct. Yes.
That was my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes.
Hi. So I know that you are doing like 24/7 construction in the upcoming week. I'm just concerned about the noise level at night, and because on the flyer it said up to 75 decibels. So I'm concerned about how much noise there will be for residents, considering that when there is construction in the area, there is that 9 to 5 scenario, so how loud it gets. And my other question is, in terms of the foundations of homes in the existing area, if we start noticing cracks or any kind of fissures in the house, what do we do about that? So those are my 2 questions.
Okay, so your first question was on night work and noise, and the answer to that is, to the extent possible, we do work during the day. Unfortunately, there are activities that, for various reasons, we have to do at night. And so when we have one of those activities, we try to let everybody know that you'll have noise and possible light interference. So there's different categories as to why we'd have to do that. The most obvious reason we have to work at night is safety because of some kind of conflict. And typically what that is to do with the train itself. So obviously, if we're going to work within the area where trains are actually running, the only time we can really do that type of work is when there are no trains running. So that, unfortunately, means at night. So unfortunately, yes, there will be times during the course of the project where we'll have to do night work. We work closely with the city. We try to avoid that when at all possible. And when not possible, when we do have to do it for safety reasons, that's where we try to notice the community and let everybody know. And we apologize for the inconvenience. We try to do it as quickly as we can. But the reality is there's certain activities that are either right on the track or for other reasons, electrical cutovers, things like that, have to be done at night. And then, I'm sorry, your second question was on the foundation damage. Well, I mean, I would certainly say document it if you really believe. JPB did an extensive noise and vibration study when we did this project. So it was an issue we were concerned about from the beginning, and we did perform a study of that. And so, you know, we believe that the vibration level that you'll experience with the shoe fly track and with other activities such as pile driving will be below the threshold in which you would see cracking in stucco or older foundations, even if they're unreinforced. Now, if you have any evidence to the contrary, though, I mean, I would get my camera out.
Okay, certainly.
I would like just to add my name is Clara Fabri, and I am the Public Services Director. I just want to add my own recommendation to each of you. Just to protect your own interest, you are talking about cracks in the foundation and who knows what. From now on will be a major change in the operation and in the construction, how Rafael presented to you. To protect your interest, my recommendation for you would be to take many pictures of everything and time stamp the picture and to document everything in your house, around your house now, before everything will start.
Thanks, Clara. I would like to add, we have had some phone calls from the residents around the project. We will come out and photograph with you. You know, that way we both have a picture of it. I'll be in the back after the meeting if you'd like to get my card, and you can contact us.
And I think, as someone who lives in the Bay Area, I want to say that I never put a picture behind my bed, and I definitely think during this period it's wise to just think about things that matter to you that may not be affixed to the wall strongly enough, and I think to err on the side of caution, particularly, you know, during this period through here, I think would be a good idea. But I went out to visit a house last week with one of the engineers and took a lot of pictures, and we're certainly willing to do that. And there was a hand up behind you.
Thank you for having this meeting, but I'd like to say that I've received no notice at all about anything. The only way I knew about this meeting was the article in the newspaper. So I guess I need to put a note in the little sign-up thing there. But could you please explain in detail how you're doing that change now at Angus? Because they put new signal things, and to me, looks like there's no way for it to go over. Where's that going to go? There's that 7-Eleven store there, and the current tracks, which the way you explain now, they're going to rip out. So there's no place there for something to go over. So what's happening there?
So how that road's going to look after this weekend is at the Huntington side. It'll be the same intersection as you see now, but we will tweak it to the south on the First Avenue side, so it'll line up much more with Angus Avenue on the First Ave side after the weekend. What you're not seeing is the tracks have actually already been installed, and they're buried under asphalt, under existing Angus crossing now. This weekend we'll go in and expose all that, and we'll reroute the road, so it'll just twist to the south a little bit. So they are already there. You've probably seen that we've repaved on First and Angus Avenue in anticipation of that. So does that answer your question?
Well, then it's going to be like a zigzag, and then back to where it ends up now as it crosses over Huntington?
It's going to look like here's Huntington.
It's actually a straight line. It is a straight line from Huntington and Angus to First Avenue and Angus. It actually should function a little better than that intersection does today.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have several questions, so bear with me.
Sure.
That's why I wanted to be last, so I wouldn't take other people's turns. I'd like to know if someone is overseeing all the projects, because so many things happening at different times of the day in different places, and places being dug up, covered up, and dug up again. Is there anybody who's overseeing to make sure that nothing gets damaged? And I'm particularly asking that because in October we had a telephone failure for 3 days. And if we had an electrical failure for 3 days, that means we couldn't cook, and it would really present a lot of hardships. So is there someone who's overseeing all of these technical details? Because I know it's a horrendous job and a lot of details that are involved in it.
I can tell you that there's a staff of about 8 of us. We're split between day shifts and night shifts to take care of that. The telephone outage was not, I would not say is directly related to our work. It was a problem that AT&T had, although it was in the intersection we were working in. And I'm not familiar with the power outage problem, so I'd probably have to know where that is.
Well, it didn't happen yet, but I'm just asking if we can, expect something like that to happen if things aren't coordinated.
No, I mean, that's what my staff is out there to avoid. And actually, we're probably about 60 to 70% done with the utility relocations for this project, including all the gas has already been relocated. It's already complete. So I think we've actually done a very good job of not interrupting service there.
Well, it's remarkable watching the work. I walk through there every day, and every day there's something new happening. One day there was a huge hole with a bunch of water. The next day, morning was totally covered up like nothing happened, and the stop sign written in. And the men have all been great directing traffic there, I think, so I want to compliment you on that. Another important question is on exiting at the new station. How is that going to be handled? Because San Bruno is such a major thoroughfare to the freeway and other areas. I'm afraid that it's going to cause a lot of congestion there when people start leaving who are parked there. And as they're coming, the commute hour, it's going to be a mad rush all through there.
You're talking in the final condition for the project?
Yes.
Do you want to answer that one?
So are the people going to be leaving to San Bruno Avenue, or is there going to be another exit? It seems to me it needs to be really addressed. That's an important issue.
So there will be no access on San Bruno itself. So if you want to get into the station, access will be either at Walnut. So it will direct you on San Mateo onto, would that be westbound Walnut? And then westbound Walnut will have a dedicated road going into the new station parking lot. And then there'll be, it kind of leads through the drop-off area, and then the out will be onto San Mateo, not onto San Bruno. So there won't be driveway access onto San Bruno, if that's your question.
Well, then are the streets going to be widened? Because that doesn't look like there's enough room right now to allow for all that.
So there is some widening in that area, in particular where that turn is. It does get a little bit widened.
So how many lanes are going to be allowed? Because right now it's just one each way.
Well, absolutely. And right now, what you're seeing are impacts from the work. So as you recall, it wasn't like that, and it won't be like that. But in the interim, you're correct. Everything has gotten constricted, and that's just simply to allow us to get all this work accomplished. But yeah, in the final alignment, you're not going to have one and one. You have a widen, and then you have a turn pocket. And there's a little bit of restricted parking on that section of San Mateo. Right now you can park, or at least you used to be till a couple months ago, you used to be able to park on that section of San Mateo. That'll be restricted. That'll gain a little bit of space as well. And then likewise, that turn on a Walnut. And just to let you know, I mean, we do check that, obviously. We do run what we call a turn template. So we just want to make sure that vehicles can make those turns, et cetera. And we did do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope you really look at that thoroughly, because to me, I'm still concerned that it's going to be a problem with all the traffic there.
So, and just one last thing I wanted to say on that, just because it's self-serving and makes me look good. But the other thing that's going to get better in that final condition is that you're not going to have, part of the reason traffic through there is so difficult, even without the construction, is because of the train traffic, right? So what happens when there's a train, as you know, the northbound train and southbound train are so close together, you end up blocking San Mateo, San Bruno for that whole chunk of time. Traffic's backing up, people are trying to make a right turn. So remember, that's all gonna go away. That will become direct access. You'll no longer be blocked from that. So although I agree with you that there are definitely heavy traffic volumes there, and obviously the construction work that's going on right now is not making it better, but in the final condition, it will improve.
Okay, my next two questions are related to the brochure here regarding funding. Here I don't see anything provided by Caltrain, so it seems like either the city or the state are paying for all of this.
So there's a number of funding sources. Some of it's coming from the PUC, which has a fund specifically for grade separations. So part of the funding is coming from that. There's some that is coming through other state sources, but the bulk of the money is coming through the TA, which is the sales tax initiative to fund transportation improvement projects.
So Caltrain is not contributing anything then?
Yeah, you want to?
I guess just to explain the color of money. So when Raphael talked about the PUC, so it's the State California Public Utilities Commission, and so they oversee transportation safety broadly, and they specifically will look at transit properties to see if they're operating safely or intersections, and so they have funding to encourage grade separations, and as Mayor Ruane indicated, this is one of the 5 worst intersections. Then the residents of San Mateo County are a self-help county, so have voted a sales tax, I believe a 0.5% sales tax, which is dedicated to transit usage. So that is what is contributed. So there isn't, Caltrain is a joint powers authority, and it doesn't have any dedicated funding directly to it. So that's why you're seeing the funding coming through sales tax revenue here in San Mateo County and the state PUC. So that'd be my explanation on that.
Thank you.
I'd like to correct you a little bit. Okay, sure. Major aid is half of major aid goes for transit, and the other half goes for streets, highways, roads.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
50-50 split.
Correct.
Okay, just a minor clarification. Again, on this sheet, it mentions the 3 underpasses, Sylvan, New Station, and Euclid Avenue. It doesn't say Angus, so I'm confused with that.
So those are the pedestrian-only underpasses that's referring to?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. Pedestrians obviously will be able to use San Bruno, San Mateo, and Angus, as will vehicles. But in addition to that, there's 3 pedestrian-only access points, and those are the ones that are being referred
All
to.
right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And 2 things. One, I want to thank the questioner because it reminds me that your compliment of the Granite employees that I wanted to introduce that Marlon Murray is here, and he's the regional manager of construction for Granite Construction, and he's been here throughout the meeting to listen to questions and concerns. And I also wanted to acknowledge that to your point about the sufficiency of some of the road structures that are being built, that is also something that the city of San Bruno has its own independent oversight of. So Clara Fabry and Bruce and others with the city, they're not, they are making sure to oversee our activity and to ask the questions and to make sure that what is being built is sufficient for the long term. So I want to acknowledge that. There are other questions? Yes, sure. You can have 2 bites at the apple, as they say.
I would like to say that when they were undergrounding BART, and I'm on 2nd Avenue near Angus, but when they were undergrounding BART over along the railroad track over on First, they were doing a lot of pounding, and nothing fell down in my house. It wasn't like an earthquake. Sure, we could hear it, but it was not all that bad. So I'll give you credit for that.
Hi, I'm Alice Barnes, and I was on the committee also that planned this, and I owe you all an apology, I guess. Couple quick questions. The piles, 3 sets of piles on San Bruno Avenue, 3 sets of piles San Mateo Avenue, 2 sets on Angus. I listened to you. How many piles in a set?
Well, it depends. More on Angus, obviously, than San Bruno, but we have a 100. Yeah. So a total of 650, so you're looking at per set, what, 40 roughly? 40 and more on Angus, so 40 and say 60 for Angus where they're larger caps.
Math isn't my forte. That's 100 or what? 200 total piles?
It's more than that, it's almost 600.
600
Correct.
piles.
Mhm.
Okay, that's why I wear a hearing aid. 600 piles, but that's not in a set. That's total.
Correct.
Thank you. You mentioned in answer to a question, the time for decision on tracking. You said, quote, at a certain point, Mark Simon told the city council that a decision would be made. And when do you expect that decision to be made?
Well, it's a decision that really has a purely political component, and it has to do with high speed. So we are expecting a decision to be made this calendar year. The issue is a question of, well, let me answer it this way. If the answer is yes, we'll know sooner. If the answer is no, my guess is they're going to politically want to wait till the last day to actually announce that. That's just my own internal bias against the procedure, but...
So in all probability, the 3 council members out back are going to know your decision by Christmas of this year.
Oh, definitely before then, yes.
Labor Day? No, I'm asking. Okay, as far as the question about the lighting underneath Angus, there's a height from the pavement to the bottom of the overpass, about 15 feet.
Yeah.
So you're letting in quite a bit of light from the 2 sides, Huntington and First.
Correct.
And there's a median strip in Angus that's going to be there, and it's going to be substantially wider.
That's
I
correct.
think there's 2 lanes in one direction, isn't there, at First? There's a left turn lane.
I think there is.
So we're talking like more than 2 lanes that you have now.
It's certainly that
definitely.
wide. I don't know if we're striping it that way, but you're correct. It was designed with a very wide sidewalk and enough pavement area for either a bike lane or an extra lane. Of course, depends how the rest of the city gets striped, but yeah, it is definitely wider than a typical underpass.
And as Mr. Riegel said, and the fire chief has said, getting that tiller truck is going to work because we made damn sure that the tiller truck would be able to turn in anybody else in the county. Door flyers. Thank you for the door flyers like this lady. I didn't know about it. Can we find out from the principal when the school sent out the notices about tonight's meeting to the parents?
So we sent out the meetings of the notice. Principal Rothammer was kind enough to take flyers, and he gave them to the 100 families that were here for preschool, and then 430 families who are here for elementary school. But we did a mailing through Accurate Mailings, which mailed for the past 2 meetings. I have heard that there's some concern. We got the copies that were our test copies, but it would be helpful if you could speak to myself or Christina or Christine after the meeting and let us know where you live so we can check it out with the mail house. And then we asked this past weekend, and we made rubber band flyers and did them just so that we wanted to do everything possible to try and get them to people. Obviously, we distributed about 750 door hangers that we did, but I certainly welcome the specific feedback, and if you talk to me, we'll make sure that we do a better job for our next meeting.
So it's fair.
I called out to all 400. I did a call out on Friday to all 400 plus families and staff. So they all got a message in their home phone on Friday. On Thursday. Okay?
Okay, and you
No,
all...
I'm just referring to families that their children attend Bel Air, not the overall community.
Right.
I'm only referring to families who have students here at Bel Air.
And I appreciate that,
Okay.
and I assume the notice said Angus is going to be closed for a week, and you know that. Okay. Not everybody has a child in the school. There's a very nice gentleman who lives over on Mastic. His name is Henry. And he walks through the Bel Air every day going to work over in that direction. And I asked him this morning, hey, did you know there's going to be closed for a week? No idea. No idea. It seems to be a very well-kept secret. And if you guys are putting door flyers or anything else out there, even in English, I didn't get it. And I'm on your list, your mailing list, and I'm on your email list. And I read it in the San Bruno patch that all 3 intersections were going to be closed for a week. And it upset me. And then I found out only Angus is going to be closed for a week. Could you please share with us, and maybe the fire chief wants to donate some time on this, as to what we're going to do for fire protection during all those hours when we can't get our fire trucks to us? And then I got more questions.
Fire Chief Dennis Haig is here. Chief, do you mind coming up front? So, thank you. And this meeting is being televised, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Miriam Shallett and Owen Modeste, who are recording this for San Bruno Municipal Cable, and then to thank Elisa Gonzalez, who's in the back, who's been translating the meeting. Chief?
Yeah, we have run times. We've notified our private ambulance provider of the closures and instructed them to respond from the east, from East San Bruno Avenue. We've run times from our station, main fire station, to Angus and 7th. Our normal response time is about 4 minutes. The extended response time through the detour is about 7 to 7.5 minutes. So there is a 3-minute differential on response times. I'm confident that we've notified South San Francisco. Their closest engines are second due in this area. I'm probably, when we go to council tomorrow night, I'm not opposed to staffing an engine on the east side. Obviously, we don't have anywhere to house them, but they'll be a mobile unit for the duration of the 29 hours.
Bruce, do you want to come up so you can use the mic?
Remind that there's going to be 1 lane open on San Bruno Avenue at 2 p.m. Saturday
2 p.m.
for emergency response. Yeah. Correct. So I think they
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Chief Telford?
Similar to fire, we've also ran some times. We anticipate that we may have 1 minute extension on a response. It also depends on where we're coming from at the time the call is dispatched. But in addition to that, during the closure where all 3 crossings are closed, we will assign additional personnel to the Bel Air area. So they will be here all the time. Additionally, we have detour routes planned in case we need to put additional officers into the area and are comfortable and confident with those response times. We will have people here. We will have people assigned to the general area during the time that San Bruno Avenue is closed. We'll continue to evaluate it and continue to evaluate traffic patterns during this construction. And again, as was mentioned in the back, they do anticipate that they will have 1 lane for emergency vehicle access open by Saturday afternoon. So hopefully to reassure you that your safety is a priority for us.
Sure.
Thank you for mentioning that. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that Saturday afternoon access is only for emergency vehicles. It won't be good for regular residents' traffic. It'll be sort of a rough road to get the fire trucks or police vehicles over if needed, or ambulances. Thanks.
If I may finish on that, and then my dear friend here. What I just heard is unacceptable, okay? I did some research in the same period, January 11th through the 18th, last year. In our neighborhood, we had 4 medical calls. We had 3 fire department calls because of accidents. We had 1 call for a fire, and we had 1 call for public assistance. That's an average of more than 1 a day. And you're now saying that from 11 p.m. on Friday night until 2 p.m. on Saturday, 15 hours, we're on our own.
No.
except he can all go up to Scott and come down. The fire department will go up to Scott during that time to come, let's say, to the school. Nobody's arguing with me because that's the information you gave.
Well, that's not quite what I heard. So
It isn't.
No.
So it's, okay.
So
Do you close at 11 o'clock on Friday night?
absolutely.
No access to the Bel Air except through Scott or
Correct.
coming up 101 down San Bruno Avenue or from South City.
Okay, so that's correct. The crossing will be at Scott.
Okay.
However, I just heard police and fire state what their response times are going to be, and explicitly what I heard was staging of vehicles on the opposite side. So it's not, that's a partial truth, what you just said, but that's not quite what I just heard.
Okay, well, let me rephrase it
Okay.
the way I understood it. From 11 p.m. Friday night, when San Bruno and San Mateo and Angus Avenues are all closed.
Right.
If I have another heart attack and I live here on 5th, the fire department, which could have got to me and has wonderfully in 4 minutes, the fire chief now just said about 7.5 minutes.
That's correct.
So we're agreed. For that 15-hour period, you're adding 3.5 minutes to my life here, maybe. And I could tell you 2 months ago, my neighbor across the street, we called the fire department on her because she had a poison. And it took 4 minutes to get the truck over to us. And it was an excellent group of paramedics. But by the time she got to Kaiser, she was in shock at 3.5 minutes to that time. Unacceptable. You can put a fire truck in the what's it called? The Royal Night Motel. They used to park an ambulance there. It is not going to cost you a whole heck of a lot for one 24-hour period. Make it one 15-hour period. Please. Somebody help me on this. I'm the one who's going to have another heart attack. Hey, you're the principal. You know, it's going to take them an extra time. If you have a heart attack here in this room on Friday morning, it's going to take that man and his crew extra minutes to get here. But if you're working on Saturday and you have it, it's going to take an extra 3.5 minutes.
Let me just say to this point that we go tomorrow night at 7:30 to the San Bruno City Council meeting. So you've had the mayor and 2 council members here. Both the police chief and the fire chief will be there. Questions will be asked at that meeting, and there will be a discussion. So I think the comments that you and other neighbors are making tonight are all going to factor into that discussion tomorrow night. So I think your voice is being heard. And, you know, you are welcome to come to the council meeting
Thank you,
tomorrow night.
but my health does not allow me to go to
Okay.
the council meetings.
But we will certainly.
So I'm saying it tonight.
I appreciate it.
Okay, now, there's another thing, and that is closing Angus for an entire week to pedestrian and vehicular traffic. And you, I don't want to say nonchalantly because it sounds negative, but you very inspirationally, Raphael, said, well, if you live south of Angus, well, you just go down to the station and cross there to get to Huntington. And if you live north of Angus, you just go on up San Bruno Avenue and cross there. I'm going to remind you of Abraham. Has no legs. Runs around in a wheelchair. Angus is his lifeline. And I figured this out for for Abraham. If you take the stop sign on Angus at first, you know, the one where you take a right and you get in the dog leg and you go, okay. He goes over to the 7-Eleven on the other side of the tracks, gets a donut or some milk. Beginning Thursday morning, it's easy. He can go down it doesn't make any difference. If he goes to the station or if he goes to San Bruno Avenue, he's going to be traveling an additional 1,700 feet. Do we know what 1,700 feet is? Most people are watching football these days. A football field is 300 feet long. So Abraham's going to sit there at that stop sign, and he's going to make his decision. I'm going up there to San Bruno Avenue, and then I'm going to come down. I want to make a point, and I want you to hear me carefully. Abraham, in his wheelchair, is going to have to go the distance of 1 football field and back, 2 football fields and back, 3 football fields and back. I'm not done. 4 football fields and back. 5 football fields and back to get over there to 7-Eleven. It's a good thing they got a deal, 2 donuts for $1, because he's going to need the energy. And then when he wants to come back home, you know what he's going to do. He's going to go 1 football field and back, and 2 football fields and back, 3 football fields and back, 4 football fields and back, 5 football fields and back to get back to that stop sign so he can go home. Now you tell me we do not need a pedestrian crossing at Angus during that period of time. Go ahead.
Well, the way I'm going to answer that question is, from the beginning, we've been very upfront that there's going to have to be 1 closure of each of these crossings at the same time to facilitate the transfer onto the sheep fly tracks. And the reason, there's physical reasons why that has to happen. It's not something to do with, I don't want to build a pedestrian crossing adjacent to it. The reason has to do with, you have to run trains either or. There is a significant grade difference between the existing tracks and the shoe fly tracks. So what that precludes is a crossing while you're running trains on either side. So I'm not trying to downplay what an impact it is.
I'm just talking pedestrian.
I understand. Right.
I'm not asking for a skyscraper.
Right.
It's not safe, no.
Help Abraham. Don't just stand there and say, well, we're going to reduce the tracks 2 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to have a shoe fly,
Mm-hmm.
and for that we've got to let Abraham do all of these football fields.
Mm-hmm.
That is not right. It's unconscionable. Shame on you.
Okay, whether it is conscionable or not, the fact is it is necessary to construct this.
It is not necessary.
Oh, you're free to explain to me how you could do it.
2 items. First of all, I have not received any notification of any meetings. The only reason I knew there was a meeting tonight was I saw it on the cable channel. I live on 4th Avenue. Second, in terms of the response times for police and fire, I'm wondering if the airport police and airport fire are involved in this at all. I do know the airport police do come over on this side of the freeway because they're on airport property, but I'm wondering if they're involved in this in terms of, facilitating response times.
Do you want to do the first part, or
About posting something on the website.
do you want to just talk about the noticing real quick, and then I'll talk about response?
Well, we did the same notice that we'd done for the 2 prior meetings. They were done through accurate mailings. It was coordinates of a quarter-mile distance from the right-of-way, and we will go back, and it would help, as I indicated, if you give us your name and address, we will go and check and see where you are and what happened. And so we'll report back. Everybody that's given us their email or a way to contact you, we'll report back to you and let you know.
And to your second question, I'm not aware that the airport police is linked into that, but that's a really good suggestion. We can let them know that that's upcoming. So thank you for that. No, it's a very good point. I appreciate that.
Because it is winter, and you have the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes
Right.
go astray. Is there any high likelihood that inclement weather will lengthen the closure times for the crossings?
Simple answer for that, no. Barring some kind of major, gale force winds kind of thing, we're committed to that timeline. The contractor's committed to that timeline, and we'll accomplish it within that time frame. If you got to work in the rain, you got to work in the rain. It's not fun, but that's what you got to do. Absolutely. Yeah, there's no construction activity that really, the main earthwork type of stuff, there's a little bit that goes into the road crossing, but the bulk of it really, the good news is, has been done when it wasn't raining. So you're going to see a lot of track work, you're going to see a lot of civil type stuff, but we've all had to work in the rain before. It's California.
Other questions? I wanted to give Clara an opportunity to come back to sort of, no? Okay. Last points we want to make? We appreciate you coming out. This is a great turnout. There are over 60 people that are here. We will certainly take a serious look at the noticing to make sure that it goes well. I'm happy to give cards to people. As was indicated, if you're concerned about vibration and potential damage, please contact one of us and we will go out and make sure to take photographs and be responsible. I want to thank all of the representatives of the City of San Bruno who worked diligently with us to make this, to mitigate this and to make it as successful as possible, both for the project and especially for the residents here. And we look forward to working with you and being accessible to you. And thank you so much for coming out. And thank you, Raphael. Did a great job. Thank you.